Welcome back to Commodity Champions, and now shift focus to gold completely, where the global markets, of course, might be closing this week on a positive note, but there have been enough concerns in the Indian markets this time around. Well, we have seen policy back and forth. We also have seen the jewellery sector reeling under low demand for 2017 due to various factors, but most importantly, the change in the tax regime. So how does the government plan to bring back the glitter to this industry? Let's welcome Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu. Mr. Prabhu, hi. Thank you so much for joining us. Many thanks. The India gems and jewellery sector hasn't had a very great 2017 in sense of industry, demand, and also the tax regime is something that they still are struggling with. What, as a government, are you looking to make changes so this industry can actually be revived?
You know, this one sector of our economy, which is growing at a very good pace, has weathered some very adverse headwinds and still survived and thrived, is a diamond jewellery sector. This sector also is one of the sectors which produces a lot of jobs. This sector which is homegrown, and more importantly, this is a sector which is purely could stand on their own feet because of their own effort and the entrepreneurship. So this sector needs promotion, support, encouragement, and therefore we are committed to make sure that this sector will grow in the years to come, to create more jobs and to create more value for the economy, and in the process create a brand equity for India overseas. So we are fully committed to promote this sector. We'll take multifarious steps that are necessary in various different ministries and take a concerted effort to allow this industry to grow to its true potential. So this is our priority, and we'll definitely take it forward.
So we also have seen some policy changes in last few months for the industry, like hallmarking, of course, being introduced is a big positive, but PMLA was introduced and then, of course, reversed. Market still is awaiting the overall gold policy. What is your stance? What is the timeline that you're working with essentially for this?
You know, these policies are not made for 1 month and 2 months. Policies are supposed to be stable, long-term. They have to be durable, forward-looking, and therefore we cannot say that a policy for 1 or 2 months. This can be at best some knee-jerk reactions to deal with a particular policy. But policy should be very long-term and stable, so we'll work on that. We'll also ensure that the adverse effect of global slowdown are reduced to a bare minimum, and we'll promote the industry to realize its true potential, as I said. So we'll definitely work on it.
Sir, a lot of time, while of course India is the second biggest gold consumer, but the other countries which are major consumers have put in various policies. Would you say that the industry and the government perhaps to make learning from these consumers like China, Turkey, etc.?
See, the government job is to allow the industry to grow. It is for the industry to learn the right lessons from the other countries. Obviously, the government also has to learn lessons about the policy making. How you allow the entrepreneurship to grow. In fact, our policy generally, not just specific to this sector, is going to be that allow the full potential of the entrepreneurship to grow in that particular sector. Allow them to grow, whatever the bottlenecks, whatever the impediments, try to remove them. So this is our general thrust of our thinking, and this is how we'll work.
Sir, most importantly, what the gems and jewellery, the diamond and the gold industry has had an impact, and a big one on that from the GST, etc. There have been concerns, bottlenecks, etc. I'm assuming you're meeting all of those people. What is your ministry doing now to resolve all of these issues?
We have already taken a number of steps after I became the minister in the last few months to remove several difficulties that the exporters are facing because of the GST regime. And I must really say that most of the issues significantly are addressed. Obviously, a new regime as huge, as comprehensive, as pervasive as GST when it comes into being, obviously it is going to create some issues initially. But we, as the government, we are committed to remove all the bottlenecks as they come in.
Thank you, sir, so much for joining us and answering all of those questions. That, of course, was India's Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu, sounding very optimistic on India's jewellery sector. But let's come back to our key question on where the gold prices are headed, and is this a good time to start investing? Yerg, hi, thank you so much for staying by. How would you look at the precious metal prices from here on? Are you looking at further gains, and what are the major fundamentals to keep an eye on?
As I just said, it's basically the whole electric vehicle scene, but outside that, I will look at the silver market, which is actually in the same situation that things like copper and zinc, which will have dramatic supply contraction going forward. There's just no way you can move up in the electronics sphere without increasing the silver consumption in that high-tech industry that includes actually cars too. So the 1 gram of silver you use your iPhone will have multiple grams imposed in your electric vehicle because it's on the end still the best transmitter of energy. The same is true for military space. So what I'm looking at is actually a silver re-rate going into 2019-20 in a massive scale. Mainly due to the fact that actually probably 80% of the industry today is producing at losses, and therefore supply is contracting faster than people actually could imagine.
So silver is the best bet in 2019 and 20. But Daniel, what is your sense? The global demand has declined, and India hasn't fared very well with the tax regime, etc. So would you say that the physical buying is something that still continues to be on the backseat?
Yeah, the physical market hasn't been a big driver of gold prices in 2017. I think that's going to continue. Certainly the signs of improving in both India and China, but it's really been investment demand which has been driving it. And certainly, you know, the heightened level of risks in global markets had benefited gold as a safe haven asset earlier in the year. That seems to have died down recently, although I certainly don't dispel, I suppose, those threats anytime soon. You know, they're still quite high, but certainly investor demand has been impacted by that. And I think now with the new Fed chair being announced, who is probably slightly more dovish than potentially expected, I think markets will probably take just a little bit more time to get comfortable with how the Fed outlook for rates looks in 2018 before you know, returning, I suppose, to a more bullish sort of drive.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for saying, and thank you, Jörg, as well, for staying by and giving us that sense on all of those commodities. So metals is still the space to be, and between gold and silver, if you have to choose, silver clearly is a top bet coming in from our experts. But with that, that's all the time that we have on this edition of Commodity Champions. Thank you for watching.